Hi everybody, we're back on your TV show from Austin, Texas. This is State Government, How It Serves You. We're actually here at the Community College in El Paso, but talking about Austin. We have a great guest today. We have Colonel Ed Manning from Fort Bliss, known at Fort Bliss as the mayor. Ed, welcome to the show.
Thanks, sir. Glad to be here.
It's a great day to be a soldier here in El Paso, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, absolutely. Every day is a great day in El Paso at Fort Bliss. It's a great community. Both on the post and the support we get throughout the community is fantastic.
Well, let's talk a little bit about what's about to happen at Fort Bliss and how it rolls out between now and 2011, 2012.
Sure.
And the BRAC process, the Department of Defense, and the dramatic growth that you're going to see at Fort Bliss. Can you walk us through the stages of what we can expect to happen and the impact really on El Paso?
Sure. The Army Congress made some decisions a few years ago in 2005 for BRAC on what the makeup of Fort Bliss would be, and changing from an air defense school to really a maneuver center of excellence, maneuver with tanks and Bradleys and infantry soldiers closing with the enemy, that type of soldiers, as opposed to the high-tech air defense Patriot folks that we had before in the schoolhouse. And that air defense school is going to move to Fort Sill, and we'll bring in 6 brigades total, maneuver brigades, plus 4 other support type brigades, a field artillery brigade, a sustainment brigade, aviation brigade, and others. And by 2012, we'll have tripled the size of Fort Bliss as it was in terms of soldier population in 2005 to just under 10,000 to about 37,000 soldiers in 2013.
Well, what is your role? You're called the mayor of Fort Bliss, the person that keeps everything rolling forward. What do you do at Fort Bliss in connection with the BRAC development?
My role as garrison commander is really the mayor, like you said. And we have the commanding general, deemed the senior commander by the Army, who would overlook all Army issues in a big picture, kind of a strategic level for the Chief of Staff of the Army. And on Fort Bliss, just like any other post, is a garrison commander that runs the operational day-to-day activities with my staff to run a post or a small city. Now, on any post, that's the infrastructure, the quality of life issues, housing, child development services for young kids, PXs, and all those things that happen on any base, running training ranges. But on Fort Bliss, in addition to all those things we do as a garrison commander with our staff, we have a tremendous growth, and we're building pretty much a brand new city on the eastern part of Fort Bliss, which was, the last time I was here as a soldier in 1999, desert and training area. And if you look at it today, we have a complete brigade combat teams, barracks, training facilities, etc., risen out of the desert, soldiers occupying it today, and 4 more you can see in various stages of construction as they continue to build in the timeline that we've set up.
You know, when you get a briefing on Fort Bliss and then go through it, it's just amazing. You're the mayor of an existing city, and then you're building another city, and at the end of this process it'll be something like 70,000 total if you take the troops and then dependents that come with them. What did you do to become a military officer, and what training, what education did you go through to become the mayor of Fort Bliss?
Well, I started off as an air defense officer, and as I mentioned before, this is not my first time to El Paso. This is actually my 3rd tour at Fort Bliss. Previous 2 times is really as an air defense officer working in the Patriot Battalion and teaching at the air defense school and teaching young captains. And from there I went on to other assignments in the Army that you would expect an officer to do. But this is actually my 2nd time as a garrison commander. I commanded a garrison as a lieutenant colonel in Germany, Schweinfurt, Germany. Now a lot smaller than Fort Bliss, but with its unique challenges. We had a brigade there, maybe about 10,000 folks total with family members and soldiers, but it gave me some of the background on how to run a garrison, how you get things done and make things work for soldiers and families. And I went off to the Navy War College and came back to another assignment, which was this, and I guess the Army took the experience I had as a previous garrison commander and sent me to Fort Bliss knowing my experience as a garrison commander and my experience with Fort Bliss, I guess folks thought it was the right mix, and I'm glad to be here because familiar with the area. My family likes it, I like it, and you see things getting done each day for soldiers makes you feel good.
Well, I detect a very far East Texas accent, I think even way far east. Tell us a little bit about your family, your background, how many kids you have.
It is far East Texas, and I grew up outside of Boston, Massachusetts, and went to high school there. From there, I left, as you probably can't tell from my accent, I actually left Massachusetts, graduated from high school, went to school at Marquette University in Wisconsin, and then joined the Army after ROTC and came to Fort Bliss, trained as a soldier, and back and forth a few times. And, my wife's from Pennsylvania, from just outside of Pittsburgh. She's actually an former Army officer. Also, she went to West Point and served for 10 years, and then got out. And we have two kids, 10 and 6.5.
How great! Let's go back to Fort Bliss now. So,
Sure.
you've got this city being built at what's already effectively a city, but as we went through the BRAC process, we learned what we were marketing at Fort Bliss and what a magnificent, I call it the crown jewel of the Department of Defense. There's really nothing like Fort Bliss, White Sands, McGregor Range, and Holloman put together. When you look at the land mass, when you look at the restricted airspace, when you look at the training ranges, when you look at its proximity to a major American city, when you look at the infrastructure connected to rail, connected to the ease of deployment through Beaumont or Corpus Christi, and getting to various theaters that the Army operates in. Now, there's nothing like it. What when you talk about Fort Bliss, just the training ranges and the size of Fort Bliss, how do we describe that within the halls of the Pentagon?
That's a good question, and it is the crown jewel. And it's not just us, Fort Bliss and El Paso and Texans, saying, talking great about our own facility and resources. It's well known at the Pentagon what great capability we have here at Fort Bliss, and the fact that it's next to a major metropolitan city, the 22nd biggest in the country, and the great support with the community, and they interact well, Fort Bliss and El Paso, that folks recognize it's a great place to train because, like you said, the training areas we have at Fort Bliss, White Sands, and all the way up to Holloman in New Mexico is a huge area, which my kids were young and we were at the Navy War College in Rhode Island, don't understand how big it is. This is as big as Rhode Island and Connecticut combined when you look at all the training areas from here to Holloman, where we can fly Air Force aircraft in joint training with Army units and maneuver on the ground. We can fire every weapon system the Army has for training on Fort Bliss and in White Sands training areas without any restrictions and interfering with other activities, civilian activities going on in terms of the airport or noise hazards to the folks in the community. So it's a great place to train, and we get a lot of folks, Army and joint folks, Navy, Air Force, Marine, want to come here and train, not only because it's a great area to train in terms of freedom to maneuver, but it certainly replicates some of the theaters that we're in today in Afghanistan and Iraq with the desert environment and the mountains and the remoteness of some of the places you get out there. So well known in the halls of the Pentagon. We get a lot of visitors down here to El Paso. Just recently, last week, the chairman was here, the vice chief of staff of the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Admiral Mullen. The vice chief of staff of the Army's been here within the past month. The chief of staff of the Army, the 3-Corps commander from Fort Hood, all come down and are just marveled at the facilities and the resources and the people, both on post and the leadership around the community, how well we work together to make this the great place it is.
I want to go back a few years into the BRAC process. I don't know if you know, but I'm the chair at the state level of the BRAC committee. And so here comes this big old BRAC round in 2005. So as a state, we had to mobilize and tell the story about Texas military. The 18 installations here in Texas, and in my view, of course, the best is Fort Bliss. But when you look at the Army, you've got Fort Hood up at Killeen. When you talk about the Navy, you've got significant installations on the coast. They train, I think, half the pilots in the Navy down there in near Corpus Christi. So when you look at Texas military, this is a big military state. But even within the halls of the Pentagon and certainly Congress, folks don't know that you're talking about a training site that's as big as 2 states. You could take Rhode Island and you could take Connecticut back to back, and you could fit it right into Fort Bliss, Holloman, White Sands Missile, and McGregor, and have room left over. And every training area that the Army runs elsewhere in the country would fit in there with plenty of room to spare. And folks don't realize just the enormity of the space and also how important restricted airspace is to military value. I found that out in trying to sell El Paso, but I think we've come way, way down the road in terms of saying what a great place this is, and the city and the state and the federal delegation really bragging about Fort Bliss to say this is the crown jewel of DOD, and I think that's one of the reasons we had such success in the last BRAC round.
Absolutely, and the work that your office and the state senate has done to help us retain a quality force at Fort Bliss in terms of the programs for quality of life, schools, education. The schools going to El Paso, Socorro, and the other independent school districts accommodate the growth, and the work you've done with that has been tremendous to help the infrastructure to allow the traffic. There's a huge increase in traffic, as you can imagine, both commercial and families and soldiers coming on to base each day with the Spur 601 that kind of cuts across from Trans Mountain all the way over to the east side onto I-10 is a great project going up, and you see it each day, and the construction going on there. It's a great effort by the state, working with the military and Congressman Reyes' office at the federal level to make all that work and make Fort Bliss what it is.
You know, when you talk about that, people say, well, wait a minute. Fort Bliss is a federal installation. You've got the United States Army there. You're getting into the federal budget, and that's what's funding this when you go and ask for MILCON expenses and so forth. But there is a significant investment that any state makes in the military, and states get way out front and trying to say this is a great place for a soldier. I want to talk about each one of these separately because this era now is coming up, the things that we need to do at the state level. We did a lot last session and passing several major bills to try and make this go forward, not just here, but at Killeen and in Sam Houston down in San Antonio. But I want to talk first about education, because now the issue, the arena is, how do we get the number of schools built on time, on budget? Where's that money going to come from? Because you've got federal impact aid, but you've got the state formulas that kick in. And to me, the most important thing is, where do we get the high quality teachers that everyone expects? And how do we do it fairly quickly in these schools? There are estimates that we're going to need as many as 300 teachers. So one of the things we did last session was to encourage retired teachers to come back and to also use the teachers that would be coming with the troops from other parts of the country and overseas to get into our schools here. How do you see that coming? Are we on time? We're going to meet the challenge of educating the children of soldiers?
Yeah, yes, I think so. I think we're on track. I hear we run a variety of forums to make sure we're getting the voice of the folks on Fort Bliss. Their voices get heard, and we address issues, and from Army level programs, the Army Family Action Plan, to the town hall meetings that I run. And the schools obviously are concerned. A soldier gets orders to come to Fort Bliss or any other post. The first thing on that family's mind is, where am I going to live and where are my kids going to school? They know the tank ranges are going to be there, and they're going to get to go out and qualify the weapons, but make sure the kids have a good place to go to school, and it's and their good quality housing is close by. So we have a lot of programs working with Dr. Garcia at the El Paso Independent School District and the other school districts to make sure that we're all talking the same numbers, and the school districts understand what we see as the growth coming and happening now, because we just had a brigade stand up this summer and continues and through the out years through 2012, that they have the right number of teachers hired. The schools bond passed by the school district and the city in 2007 to build 3 more schools on the northeast side, 3 more elementary schools and a high school to help with the growth of students. We have on my staff in the garrison, we've hired people to be liaison officers with the various school districts, and they work hand in hand with the staffs, the liaisons, military liaison staffs that the school district has hired to work together to make sure we address issues of student teacher ratio, number of schools built, military units, 37 units across the post, from battalion size, about 600 soldiers with a lieutenant colonel, down to company size with a captain with maybe 120 soldiers, go out to the various schools and sponsor them. And they're in the schools to talk not only with the teachers and say, hey, this is the demographic you have, and there may be a time when the family is separated because the soldier's downrange for a year or 15 months, and here's what you could expect to programs where commanders with soldiers go in and read to kids, help with homework programs, bring kids onto post as part of field trips and educational opportunities at the museum, and some of the training ranges get to see a tank close up, and I think it just helps with the communication, and the schools know that they can rely on us for some accurate information and be there, right there and providing support to them.
Well, I think this partnership with Fort Bliss and the schools is magnificent, because it's down to the individual class level, and you're seeing whole units adopt schools, you're seeing changes in the schools, you're seeing the parents get out there. If you want to see a school that is very interesting and diverse, it's Chapin. When you walk into Chapin, you've got a third black, a third white, a third Hispanic, you've got folks from all levels of the military, you've got officers' children, you've got enlisted men's children. They have a real esprit de corps there. And the changes at Austin that are on the way, the changes at Andress and Irvin that are on the way, the new high school is going to get built. You're seeing a lot of investment in the community by the military, and you're seeing the school district respond in kind with the kinds of programs that I think that soldiers who are being deployed, and oftentimes you've got both deployed, how we're going to deal with that in the future. So I'd like to switch now, if we could go to just a hard infrastructure, things that we got done. The first deal was the desal plant. I mean, absolutely essential to make sure that that was online and had the number of gallons that you're going to need to support Fort Bliss, and that was really a federal effort and a state contribution. The city came through, various mayors contributed to that, and now we're talking about the transportation infrastructure. Not only do you have to have the on-post infrastructure, which is pretty extensive, but getting troops to theater means railroad, it means highways, and of course the inner loop, the major link that we're rolling out right now, I think is critical. Talk to us a little bit about the inner loop project, how it's coming, how you see that working, and then some of the changes on Fort Bliss itself, maybe the rail changes that you see coming in the future.
Sure. The Spur 601 is a great project, and if you're out on the northeast side or heading to the northeast and see Fred Wilson and the construction ongoing to create that, because that spur, without it, we would be at a standstill really at East Bliss in terms of being able to get the workforce, the soldiers and the family members and people that are doing business on Fort Bliss onto post in any efficient manner without that access that would kind of skirt the southern end of new Fort Bliss or East Bliss, with access through gates that we're constructing, or actually just opened the gate off of Global Reach we just opened to allow more frequent and better access to post. Otherwise we'd have traffic at a standstill. It just allows for the better flow of traffic, and it eventually connects over to Loop 375 and allows traffic to cut right through the city and back onto 375 and down to I-10 and heading east. 375 be kind of the outer eastern edge of East Bliss. That's a great artery for folks to traverse the city and to get onto the east side of Fort Bliss, and we'll eventually have multiple gates out there for soldiers coming from the east side and workers and folks with business on Fort Bliss and East Bliss to come on right there rather than coming on the traditional gates at Fort Bliss proper and have to maneuver your way across through the older part of base just to get to something you were probably close to anyway in your business on the east side, and you come around. So that's a great project, and we see a lot of benefit in improvement to getting the ease of the infrastructure, the ease of traffic flowing onto Bliss. Now the railroad and the strategic capability infrastructure is another great point. We have a brand new railhead in we call it a DAG because the Army has acronyms for everything. Airfield Departure Control Group. It's an air terminal right side by side with each other on Biggs at the southwestern part of the runway, and it's been up since 2003, so about 5 years now. In fact, I think the first deployment, or the use of it for actual deployment, was soldiers going to OIF originally in February, March of '03, deployed from this facility. The railhead is huge, can accommodate all the growth of the tanks and Bradleys and howitzers and the things that would traditionally go by rail to a seaport and sail to whatever theater they're going to. And while the soldiers can upload their equipment on train and let it move out to theater, they can just come over to the DAG, the departure point, this air terminal, state-of-the-art facility. We could process a brigade easily in a short period of time, 3,700 soldiers, and I don't think the Air Force could bring enough airplanes onto Biggs to max out our capacity to hold them there and deploy those soldiers out. And we reused that facility frequently, monthly at least, with deployment of soldiers, because as you know, in addition to the regular Army soldiers that are stationed at Fort Bliss, we do have a huge mobilization mission at McGregor Range where soldiers, most recently the 50th Brigade from New Jersey came and trained, and they just left on a variety of aircraft. They had 3,500 soldiers in this facility, kind of really seamless to the community, and put these planes out and got great, we provided them great service there with community folks with the USO and ACS, and gave them a first-class departure as they go off to Iraq for a year.
I think the infrastructure at Fort Bliss is just amazing, and some of the laws we passed last session were to make sure that these strategic routes that got these soldiers down to Corpus, got them down to Beaumont, were seamless, that we had the infrastructure to make these connections work. But given the size of Fort Bliss, the idea of putting and investing in a railroad just to take troops, and especially the tanks, to training grounds is amazing, because it's a cheaper, more efficient way of doing it. That I don't think would occur to most people, because the physical land size of Fort Bliss is so big.
Yeah, absolutely. You're referring to the rail that we're planning is from Fort Bliss out to Oro Grande and the area out at White Sands, and that's a good amount of travel. Now, by car, and we're all used to driving in our car someplace, and that's 40 miles. That doesn't really seem a lot, but 40 miles on a tank or a Bradley with the tracks, that's a lot of wear and tear just to travel, to train. In terms of, with tight budgets and making sure we have enough money to do what we want, maintaining vehicles just to put them on the road out just to go to training kind of doesn't make sense. So if you can put them on a rail, get them out there to their training, where you're not using up-tempo dollars is what we call it, just to get there, is a big plus for that commander, because then he has more free time to go train his unit. Tanks are available, crews are available to do what they need to, and it takes tanks off the road, and Bradley's off the road and off of big HETs, the heavy equipment transporters that would ordinarily transport them on the roads, making it that much more safer for the average driver as he's going up and down Route 54 and the War Highway up towards Alamogordo in that area.
Let's switch now to soldiers and their lives. When you look at the plans at Fort Bliss, the new really mall, there's a whole quality of life center that you're building out there.
Right.
I want to talk about that, and I also want to talk about health care, how that these soldiers are going to have the doctors and nurses. As we gear up for session, we try and get our arms around what we got to get done this session. I would rank education 1, healthcare 2, and then quality of life right after that as the things that we're going to do for soldiers here in El Paso when the state comes to the table and get our piece of it done. So let's talk about first what you're planning, what's it going to look like in 5 years when a soldier walks onto the new city center right there in Fort Bliss.
Right. In terms of quality of life and shops and the PX and this lifestyle centers we're talking about building, it's a great benefit for everybody at Fort Bliss. And we really have a variety of projects. Some of the near-term ones are going up now, and we have a soldier mall, which has like a shop at a 24/7 type of store with various sundry items, with a 16-pump gas station, laundromat, video rental, and some fast food things like a Burger King, Pizza Hut going up at East Bliss, very close to where these soldiers are living now in the new barracks. That'll be ready mid-November. Great project by AAFES. There's a variety of other small food vending places going up, under construction, renovation throughout the post. But the big one is the lifestyle center that AAFES is working now, that will take the traditional box type PX, we call it, where it's just a store you walk in and there's a variety of departments. We'll keep that, but we'll expand it, and kind of on the back of it that leads down in a pedestrian walkway, it will be a variety of retail outlets and 6-screen Cineplex type of setup with some name brand family dining, all in a pedestrian walkway that's comfortable for soldiers and families to come at the end of the day or on the weekend to shop. And it really expands the capability of what the PX offers now for soldiers and accommodates the growth that we see. And we hope that that stays on track, and that we'll start turning dirt in January timeframe. In addition to that, we'll take the commissary that we have now at about max capacity, and it needs to expand. And there's plans on the books for a new commissary. The commissary now is on the north end of the PX. The new one will be at the south end of this lifestyle center and PX complex. We'll start in sometime in 2009, and it will although the square footage might not be that much more, in terms of efficient use of space inside the commissary and shelving and new technology that we didn't have when we built the current one, will really accommodate this growth in soldier population, a family population. So a great benefit for Fort Bliss. Kind of more a long-term thing in maybe 2010 or 11, there's a whole, what are we calling, a soldier, a community center at East Bliss that will have shops, PX, a chapel, gym, a huge gym for soldiers and families to use. In terms of square footage, I'm not sure, but it's really almost double the size of what we have now in the Stout Gym, for example, one of the several gyms we have on post now. That is kind of in a central location, and if you're familiar with the growth out there, the brigade complex is each of these little small villages that make up that city of El Paso, a city of East Bliss, will kind of wrap around it. And in the center is this community center, all within walking distance from each one of these brigade complexes. It would hold up to, if a brigade's 3,700 soldiers, you could have up to 3,000 soldiers living in there, the single soldiers in those barracks. The rest, of course, married, living off post or offices. So that's a great benefit for soldiers, and we're turning dirt on that now out there, and those different pieces of that will get phased in over the next few years.
You know, in January, February, we'll be going to Austin as a team. We'll be laying out the bills that we need to get done for El Paso. I want to comment briefly on those with our few remaining minutes here. And to me, one of the things we have to do is set the template for getting health professionals here in El Paso.
Right.
We're going to need to go recruit 2,200 plus nurses to El Paso for the soldiers' dependents and other aspects of the community. And we can't be taking from one group to make sure that the health care is there for another group. And then we have these doctors that we're going to have to go find and place. And as you and I have discussed many times, there's only two ways to do this. We bring them in from the outside, or we grow our own from the inside.
Right.
So we'll be working on that. Your predecessor, Colonel Burns, was with us many times, and I know you're going to get used to the halls of Austin here in a little bit. But before we have to break, let me ask you this. You've now been in El Paso. This is your third time through. Tell us one great thing that you and your family love to do here in El Paso.
Boy, I don't know. My wife keeps, we keep our kids busy, and we really enjoy it. We came from Rhode Island, was plenty to do, and they came here kind of, hey, what are we, my boy was born at Beaumont, but we left when he was a few months old and didn't really know Texas. But he comes here, there's something to do every weekend. I take them up hiking in McKelligan Canyon and up through the Franklin Mountains. They love to do that. They're on the swim team. Like to swim. I think we just like to travel this whole southwest area, get up to White Sands National Monument, which is close by, take them into New Mexico and Old Mesilla and see some of the things there. But what folks realize is they come here as soldiers and families and say, hey, I'm in the middle of the desert. But I'm in the middle of the desert where I could ski within a couple of hours. I'm next to a huge city, 22nd biggest in the country, which has a great population that's very supportive of the military, a very international flavor to it. If I like, no matter what I like to do, if it's hiking, outdoor activity up in the mountains, or just being around family and friends, etc., it's a wonderful place.
Well, I want to welcome you to the show. We love what you're doing out there. You're a great mayor for Fort Bliss. If we could elect you again to 4 more years, I think you'd have plenty of the vote here to do that. I want to thank our guest today for having been here, Colonel Ed Manning, the mayor of Fort Bliss. We'll be going down to Austin to look at the state parts of this: schools, healthcare, quality of life, workforce issues, finish up on the infrastructure. So it's going to be a great, great year to be a soldier, and we're going to do some great work in Austin come January. Thank you for joining us. Until next time, this is Austin in Focus and your State Senator, Elliott Chaplin.